Welcome to the Messy Medium podcast. I'm your host, the Messy Medium herself, Tara Cecilia. I'm a tea connoisseur, intuitive psychic medium, and a lifestyle and business coach for individuals looking to create their most luxe legacies. I'm here to spill the tea on life, death, legacy, and everything in between. In this podcast, we're not afraid to get a little messy. Hello, and welcome back to the Messy Medium podcast. It's me, Tara. What's up? How are we doing today? I am recording this for the second time because the first time the video that goes along with this podcast episode was not good. So I'm only doing what's the very best for you all, and I am recording it so that everyone has quality content, whether on YouTube or through podcast streaming services. So just know I'm out here doing the very best for y'all. But I think it actually worked out for the best because I filmed this originally, this topic we're going to talk about today, which is all about intuition. And I filmed it, and then I had a reading, and the person that I had a reading with had some like really great questions about intuition. And I was like, damn, that would have been great in the podcast. This is prior to me knowing that the video originally was not good. It's like, damn, that would have been great in the podcast. And then lo and behold, I go to edit like a day or two later, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. But now I can add these really great thought-provoking questions into my refilm of this. So I was like, that's awesome. And then even like just going over like what my notes for what I wanted to say, I had another like thought-provoking thing come up that was applicable to this podcast. So I was like, wow, it was meant to be that I filmed this and it didn't work out the first time. So it's just like, you know, I wanted to get frustrated. I was upset, obviously, because I'm trying to get ahead of the game here and be ahead of schedule, because that's just, you know, my Virgo midhaven. That's what we want. But obviously that was practice, and that there was more, you know, useful information coming from me. I'm trying to figure out the best way, if you're there watching this video, they see me stretching, the best way for me to have my notes on my laptop and like stretch over, but also not have my laptop in the scene. But bear with me. We're still learning over here. That's the great part about being human, is that we're learning every day. So again, today we're talking about intuition. And man, intuition is like, I kind of feel like it's like a hot topic a little bit, depending on like what side of the internet you're on. But the thing with intuition is that we all get those pings, those feelings, those notions within our stomach, which is like information from our senses trying to guide us. You know, we have women's intuition, mother's intuition, twin intuition. And a lot of people are like, well, how do I follow intuition? Like, what even is intuition? So hopefully by the end of this podcast, we kind of have a better idea of what intuition is. And something I loved, because I do like some research here. We're not just talking out of our asses over here. Forbes called intuition the highest form of intelligence. Forbes called intuition the highest form of intelligence. I want you to take that in for a second, because that's like a credible source saying, hey, yeah, intuition is highly valuable. It is the highest form of intelligence that we can have. And the thing is, we all have intuition, just like we all have natural psychic abilities. Some of us are further along in that journey of being in touch with those types of things. Some of us are like, no, I don't feel like that at all. But like, if you have intuition, or like you follow your gut, you're like, I make great decisions, because you're really good at listening to yourself. You're really good at listening to your intuition. Hey, I got news for you. You're tapping into your natural psychic abilities. For me, my family, it was the family stomach, or the knowing, it was referred to as, but it's both sides of my family are very intuitive, and it was more easily talked about. I will say, like, after going through like different like abuse and trauma situations, it did become for me very hard to listen to my intuition, because like, how do you trust yourself after going through stuff like that? But ironically, the way to get through that, or the way to get not over that, but work through it and over those difficulties, is to lean back in to your intuition, into your internal knowing, and really trust yourself, trust your gut again, learn from your experiences, etc. And I've been asked, this was one of the great questions that was asked of me by my client: how do you know the difference between anxiety and like trauma and like triggers, like in response to like situations that remind you of other not so good situations, and your intuition? And the best way I was able to answer that was by saying, with intuition comes an inner calm with following it and making decisions based off of it. But when you're making choices not from your intuition but through your anxiety, it's still noisy, it's still blurry and cloudy and convoluted, and you don't actually feel good after you've made the decision, whatever that is. But with intuition, you know, you're calm. There is a sense of relief post decision. Once you begin to even question your anxiety, be like, is this intuition or anxiety? You're already making a major step in trusting your intuition and using your intuition to make decisions, because your intuition here is only meant for you to reach your highest self, your highest form of yourself, your highest timeline, etc. Intuition is only here to guide you and protect you. And that's why when we're kind of coming out of like a trauma response and we're protecting ourselves, we're like protecting ourselves from ourselves. We're like kind of just stopping everything, when what we need to do is kind of lean in and get in touch with ourselves again. And it can be very hard. It can be very, very difficult. And if you don't feel ready to do that, you don't have to pressure yourself to do that. But you may find it to be helpful, and you may find it to actually be pretty beneficial to you. And that anxiety kind of comes with like my first, like, how do I listen to my intuition, like, tip, which is stop overthinking and play with your pings. Those pings inside of you, you're like, should I pay attention to that? Should I be listening to that? There's such a chronic issue of people overthinking, and it keeps us trapped in this constant state of worry and uncertainty, and we deserve to live outside of that state. We deserve to live in a state of abundance and happiness, and a place where we can thrive. Meanwhile, you may be like, I don't know what the right decision is. Meanwhile, your intuition has been pinging you on the proper response the whole time. And eventually one day you're just like, oh yeah, I knew that. Yeah, you knew that. You knew that. I mean, how many times have you heard or seen something happen and you were like, wow, I thought that was going to happen the whole time. We're like, yeah, I kind of thought that, or I kind of picked that up. Blah, blah, blah. Hello. Intuition. And not for nothing. You trust your eyes. Trust your ears. Trust your nose. You trust those senses. Why do you keep ignoring this sense? The sense that is intuition. Why do you trust your ears, nose, eyes, but not your intuition? Why don't you trust yourself? Why don't you trust your higher guides, your spirits, the calling, the knowing, the pings? Those are questions that you have to ask yourself and figure out how you can interrupt the thought process of not trusting them and re-diverting your mindset to trusting yourself and knowing that you know the right answer and knowing that you know the right answer for you in the situation. And I really encourage you to play with those feelings and really start diving deeper into your own intuition. And it was funny because I was getting ready to film this, and I want to apply it to real life. And I was like, wow, when was what is a story that I can tell that applies, like me trusting my intuition and coming out well for me? And now it's hard. Now it was hard to think of like a specific story, because I always trust now it's like natural for me to trust my intuition and just follow it. So it was like really kind of hard for me to make a decision most recently. So I was like, let me just think back further. And I thought of a story that I think is a good example of like intuition keeping you safe. And this is probably, I want to say 2008 or 2009, this story. And I was in middle school, and I walked home from middle school most days. And especially when it's like the springtime, like I like to walk home. And usually I'd walk now my town is so small, I'm going to say like a main road. It's a busy road by my house. And I usually would walk on that road home, but it was adjacent to a baseball field. And I didn't like to walk through the baseball field because there was lots of like water rodents in the water there, because it's a baseball field. So there's like constantly garbage in the garbage cans. It's gross. So there's like attracts animals. And I did not love to walk that way. I tried not to walk that way. It also felt longer, even though it wasn't. It just was so yucky. But for some reason this day, I was like getting intuition. Not for some reason. My intuition was guiding me to keep me safe. I was getting like, I should walk home through the baseball field. Right? So that's what I do. And there is also a high school right by my house. And on the main road, high schoolers were drag racing their cars. They were racing down the road, like two cars. I don't know how they fit. Basically, they practically didn't fit. And they were drag racing on the main road that I usually walked home on. And I mean, they came around a turn. They would not have saw me because I was adjacent I would have been walking the same speed, etc. if I was on that road as opposed to the baseball field. They would have hit me if I had not listened to my intuition. I have no doubt in my mind that my intuition kept me safe from being severely injured, if not killed, that day from those kids racing on the road, which is a chronic problem. I live in the same area. It's still a chronic problem. Things do not change, but it is amazing that just by listening to my intuition, just by choosing to listen to it was strong that day. I was like, that was the start of me being like, I really need to not ignore this natural sense that I have, because it is right. It is right. And definitely with intuition, it's a mindset thing. And there are going to be moments when you are uncomfortable and you have to confront and challenge your doubts and about yourself and about situations. And I say it all the time, but in that uncomfortability is where the most profound moments of growth are born and come from. And again, it's really, really is hard to start to trust your intuition, especially after hurt and abuse and after just years of not knowing how to communicate with yourself. And I don't want to I don't want to struggle you. I don't want to shame you if you're struggling with that. But I do want to again remind you that intuition is here to guide you to your greatest good. And it's here to challenge you to find new ways to listen to your heart, your soul, your body, rewire yourself, make those connections. Pause and honor the small things, the small moments. Take a walk, meditate, dance, write, art. Find a way to be in a deeper state of self so that you can connect with it. You can start that connection. So you can start that connection again within yourself, or strengthen it if you already, you listen to your intuition pretty regularly. This repetitive mindset, this repetitive connection making is going to be a way for you to strengthen, a connection with your mind, body, soul, all of it really. And it can also help with your anxiety and managing your anxiety. Obviously, seek treatment for your anxiety or depression. But these are also really great ways to help manage and, I've found, reduce my anxiety and depression. And now I'm going to get really woo-woo with you. Really good. We're going to woo-woo it up here. Acknowledge patterns. Acknowledge patterns. You're seeing those numbers over and over again. You're noticing it. Maybe even songs, maybe words, maybe colors, maybe animals you're seeing again. Or even maybe just whispers within. Or the actions of others. You're noticing the patterns. Tap into those. Notice them. Take a note. Acknowledge them. Pause. Acknowledge the small things. That is a part of the strengthening of your intuition. That is a part of it. I sound so crystal girly. Listen to the angel numbers. You're noticing it for a reason. Why are we doubting ourselves? If you think it means something, it probably means something. It may not mean the biggest thing. Maybe it does mean the biggest thing. That's for you to decide in the moment. But your intuition is only here to help. It's only here to help. I remember a time when, this is again middle school. Middle school is like really when like my intuition started to pop off. Like I really started to listen to it again and follow that. And I remember I was in the basement at my the house I grew up in, and my dad had like come in the room and he was talking to me, and I literally could not tell you what he was talking about. But I remember getting a whisper like to me through my intuition that he was, that things were going on in my parents' marriage. And I was like, thought to myself, no way. But it was so profound that I remembered it. This was probably like the spring. And then by the winter, the thought that I had about my dad and my mom and the end of their marriage and all of that came true. Because intuition is just our innate natural psychic abilities. Intuition is something we all have, and we should all trust. It would be amazing to see, for children in schools and stuff, what would come from allowing them to trust those senses. What would come from them being encouraged to lean into those senses? What would come from them being exposed to and encouraged to use mindfulness techniques and meditation techniques and inner self-evaluation techniques? I don't have children, so I don't know if, I'm sure it's being applied at some schools, but what would it be like if it was applied on a grander scale? It would be very interesting to me to see what kind of results would come from that type of curriculum, or like that being weaved into the current curriculum. Because I think, wow, how, like if I was like really leaned into my intuition. Like, my family didn't discourage it. That's not what I'm saying. It's just like when you're in school and like all these other outside sources make you question yourself and make you not feel good about yourself, and like the different traumas that come along with being, for me, a fat kid in school. I really questioned everything about myself. What would I be like, or what would so many people be like if that, like, follow yourself, your uniqueness is good, like, trust yourself, trust your gut, that type of stuff was encouraged? It's so interesting to think about. And it's so interesting to think about how when I do eventually have children and I instill that in them, like, what are they going to be able to do with that? It's exciting. It's awesome. Well, I think I've rambled up a little bit too much, maybe just enough, about intuition. But I would love to hear about when your intuition, helped you, guided you, or how it feels now that you've started to maybe lean into your intuition a little bit more. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will catch you again real soon. Until next time, stay blessed, babes. Thanks for tuning into the Messy Medium podcast. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow wherever you're listening from. You can find me, the Messy Medium, on all social media platforms under the handle Tara Cecilia. If you'd like to book an intuitive reading, consult session, or explore my coaching containers, please find the direct link to those services and more in the show notes. Until next time, stay blessed, babes.